guys ready? Can I get a roll call?
Brian Benyo.
Present.
Lisa Powell.
Present.
Richard Blevins.
Present.
Mark Hall.
Present.
Melissa Potts.
Present.
We stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started into the agenda, would like to observe a moment of silence for a past board member who has passed away. Patty Pratt had served about 15, 20 years ago for multiple terms and passed away. So. Thank you. Okay. Treasurer's recommendations. It is recommended that the minutes of the February 4th, 2016 regular meeting of the Western Reserve Local Board of Education and the minutes of the February 25th, 2016 special meeting be approved as mailed to each member in advance of the meeting.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Benyo.
Yes.
Mr. Blevins.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mrs. Potts.
Yes.
Mrs. Powell.
Yes.
It is recommended the February 2016 financial reports be approved and the February listing of bills be approved as mailed to each member in advance of the meeting.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Blevins.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mrs. Potts.
Yes.
Mrs. Powell.
Yes.
Mr. Benyo.
Yes. It is recommended that the amended excess cost agreement between the Mahoning County Educational Service Center and Western Reserve Local School District be approved. See attachment.
They change this
Can you-
every year because they don't know what services, what children are going to need until you start into the school year. So it went up, I think, $20,000, which is not unusual.
I think it's this.
It's right here.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was the back. There you go. So moved.
Second. Mr. Halls?
Yes.
Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Benyo?
Yes.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes. It is recommended that the following donations be approved. $1,000 from State Representative Ron Gerberry to the High School Fund, $140 from Farmers National Bank for the school rewards, $1,850 from Robert Sen Studio to the high school and elementary school funds.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Benyo?
Yes.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes.
Mr. Halls?
Yes.
It is recommended that the following resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor be approved. Whereas this Board of Education, in accordance with the provisions of the law, have previously adopted a tax budget or has been granted the authority by the Mahoning County Budget Commission to waive this requirement for the next succeeding fiscal year commencing with July 1st, 2016. And whereas the Budget Commission of the Mahoning County of Ohio has certified its actions hereon to this board, together with an estimate by the county auditor of the rate of each tax necessary to be levied by this board, and what parts thereof is without and what part within the 10 mil tax limitation, therefore be it. Resolved by the Board of Education of the Western Reserve Local School District, Mahoning County, Ohio, that the amounts and the rates as determined by the Budget Commission in its certification and be the same hereby accepted, and be it further resolved that there be and is hereby levied on the tax duplicate of said school district, the rate of each tax necessary to be levied within and without the 10 mil limitation as follows. Everybody sees the dollar amounts presented there. And it is further resolved that the treasurer of this board be, and she hereby directed to certify a copy of this resolution to the county auditor of said county.
That comes straight from the county auditor, just so you know, I didn't make that up and make him read it.
Thank you.
That's
So this is our,
This is the money that they're going to give us from property tax.
Based on the
Okay.
standing levies we have passed
Okay.
within the district, these are the millages and the anticipated funds.
okay,
This is what they say that we should get this next coming year.
okay. So
Motion.
moved.
Second. Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Bunyan?
Yes.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes.
Mr. Halls?
Yes.
Mrs. Potts? Yes.
Superintendent's recommendations. Do you want to talk about the calendar at all, Jeff? Or
Yeah,
anything?
it's no change from what I'd given you last month. A little different from last year. We had talked and the teachers had brought up an idea to consider as far as our conference days. Instead of having them, typically we do those the Tuesday night before Thanksgiving, and then they're off on Wednesday. Looking to move that the week before and basically just give a little bit of an extension on that Thanksgiving break. They're basically done on Tuesday before Thanksgiving at the end of the school day as opposed to that night. Same thing in February over President's Day. That's a 4-day weekend, and they wanted to, they asked about doing that. We're actually moving the conferences after that weekend, and it's just, that Friday that we're off for President's Day weekend is the conference night that they'll do at the end of that same week. So it kind of makes those weekends a little bit length to them for mini vacations, get out of town, whatever. Basically the same start day after Labor Day, and what finishes up with last day of classes Friday, June 9th. So very, very much within the range that we have traditionally had here. Schools in the county are some are doing various things. I know West Branch has gone, they did last year before Labor Day, now they've gone back to after Labor Day. So I think it's quite good that we stuck with our traditional, people know school starts after Labor Day, and you don't get into those issues, and this follows pretty much that same calendar. I did mention, again, just in case you're wondering, one point to, when you look at that and say, well, how come we're coming back from Christmas break on Tuesday, January 3rd, with our contract with our classified employees, because January 1st is a holiday and it's on a Sunday, the recognized holiday is the following day. If we were to come back on the 2nd, we would have been paying them holiday pay to be here. So
Good catch, yeah.
yeah, so it's, that's where we worked out the calendar, and like I said, no real big changes from past years as far as the traditional days.
Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the 2016-17 school calendar?
Second. Mr. Bunyan?
Yes.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes.
Mr. Halls?
Yes.
Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
It is recommended that the 2016-2017 inter-district and intra-district open enrollment procedures of the Western Reserve Local School District be sent to the Ohio Department of Education to verify compliance with the Ohio Revised Code, the Ohio Administrative Code, and the State Board of Education rules.
Basically, this is just a form every year that has to be submitted, and no changes to our open enrollment. Your options are you either do not have open enrollment, you have open enrollment only to adjacent school districts to us, or you have open enrollment to any district in the state, and that's how we've always been. And, so there were no changes made to that, and just a formal form to the ODE on there.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes.
Mr. Halls?
Yes.
Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Bunyan?
Yes. It is recommended that the following resolution be approved for the sale of Ellsworth property. Resolution declaring that a case of urgent necessity exists in authorizing dispensing with the requirements of Revised Code 3313.46. The Board of Education of the Western Reserve Local School District met in regular session on March 10th, 2016 at the offices of the board with the following members present. We had everyone present. The treasurer advised the board that the notice requirements of Revised Code 121.22 and the impending rules adopted by the board pursuant thereto were complied with for the meeting.
So this, what is this?
That means that we have to do it in public session. You can't do it in executive session.
Okay. So you
This
need a
is for
motion?
the Ellsworth property.
Okay, so
And
it just needs to
This
be
is
a
our
public-
school attorney wrote this up for us.
Okay.
Um,
And we need a
Brian-
motion to sell, is it, we're going to
Basically
sell
to
it?
approve that. So
Okay,
Brian
gotcha.
and Kathy have already signed the deed.
Okay.
With Commonwealth title. I did get an email today trying to determine if there needed to be an actual closing meeting. From Commonwealth, they said since there really was no real money exchange, I mean, we're doing it for the nominal fee of $10. It's not like there's a bank there
Right.
giving a loan and all that. I said I didn't feel we needed to be present in a meeting, as long as Ellsworth Township was going to cut us the check for the $10, and, you know, everything was signed already.
Perfect.
So we had hoped to have this actually here, the deed here, you know, for this, but it's just a matter of approving that sale. Everything else is done, and it's just a matter of the closing meeting for that.
I need a motion. Okay. Need a motion to proceed through the remainder of this?
So moved.
Missy, thank you. Whereas the motion adopted the following resolution. Whereas the board owns certain real estate in Ellsworth Township that is identified in the attached agreement, and whereas the identified real estate is held in the name of the Board of Education in the Ellsworth Rural School District, which became the Board of Education for the Western Reserve Local School District after a school district consolidation, and whereas the real estate is no longer needed for school purposes, and whereas the board and the Board of Trustees of Ellsworth Township have engaged in meaningful discussions regarding the sale and transfer of the real estate to the Board of Trustees for the Ellsworth Township, and whereas the board is advised that the sale of the real estate to a taxing authority such as the Board of Trustees for the Ellsworth Township is exempt from public auction requirements found in Revised Code 3313.41. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Western Reserve School District, County of Mahoning, State of Ohio, that Section 1, it is determined that the real estate identified in the attached agreement and any improvements upon said real estate are not needed for school purposes. Section 2, it is further found and determined that compliance with the statutory procedures regarding a public auction in Revised Code 331341 are not applicable to the transfer of the property to another taxing authority. It is further found and determined that the attached agreement transferring the real estate identified in the attached agreement to the Board of Trustees of Ellsworth Township is reasonable and is approved. The board president and the treasurer are authorized to take these steps necessary to finalize the transfer of the real estate identified in the attached agreement. It is further found and determined that all formal actions of this board concerning and related to the adoption of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this board, and all deliberations of this board and any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were adopted in meetings open to the public, and that all notices to the members of the Board of Education, media, and those requesting notices were accomplished in compliance with all requirements of the applicable laws, including but not limited to Revised Code 121.22.
Take a breath.
You're getting all of good.
Yeah.
You
that's
want
water. All right, at this point, I need a motion
Didn't I already motion?
to approve,
Or you need another motion?
Sections, right, I think, right?
need a motion to adopt that previous resolution
So
in a
moved.
second.
And I'll second, yeah.
Mr. Halls?
Yes.
Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Benyo?
Yes.
Mr. Blau?
Yes.
It is recommended that the resignation of Janine Bartow from the 3-hour reserve building janitor position be accepted regretfully.
So moved.
Second. Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Benyo?
Yes.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes.
Mr. Halls?
Yes.
It is recommended that the request from Patricia Ripley for an unpaid leave of absence be approved.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Benyo?
Yes.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes.
Mr. Halls?
Yes.
Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
It is recommended to add Kristen O'Connell, Richard Hura, William Lucas be added to the certified substitute list.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Benyo?
Yes.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes.
Mr. Halls?
Yes.
Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
It is recommended that Kitcha Derrickson be added to the certified substitute list. Or, I'm sorry, classified substitute list.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes.
Mr. Halls?
Yes.
Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Benyo?
Yes.
It's cheating.
It is recommended that Andrew Haig be hired as the head varsity football coach for the 2016-17 school year as per the salary schedule in effect.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Halls?
Yes.
Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Benyo?
Yes.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes.
It is recommended that Jennifer Lorenzi be hired as the head varsity volleyball coach for the 2016-17 school year as per the salary schedule in effect.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Benyo?
Yes.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes.
Mr. Halls?
Yes.
Okay. Building principals report. I'm going to step for a second and get a drink.
I don't know why.
Well, let's start with tomorrow's our PTO auction. Hopefully everybody will come out and support the PTO. A couple things that are going on this month. 15th, we're really trying to make a full day preschool, so we're doing a preschool open house. We have 13 kids in the afternoon preschool, and so hopefully we'll have a morning preschool. We have a blended classroom, so we have special needs kids and regular kids, and it's going very, very well this year, so pretty happy with it. The 23rd, OWOW is coming in for 5th grade. The 24th is COSI Day, so COSI will be here on the 24th, and they'll be in the gym. And the students, we did it last year, PTO sponsors it, and they'll have different stations in the gym, and it's a really nice day. A couple of things that are coming up. Actually, we had our Cash for Cans yesterday. If you give kids food, they will do anything. So I told them that whichever class had the most participation, I'd have breakfast with them. I'd buy them breakfast. We had so many cans out there, bags of cans. We had tons. So we might have taken the county in just 1 month, but there were a lot of cans out there. So I have to figure out who brought which class. I didn't do the most cans per class, but who had the most participation. So anyway, that worked well. We have a couple of things going on as professional development. I've told you before about we're getting an increasing number of kids with executive function disorders. Not autism necessarily, but maybe some sensory disorders and things like that. And so one of the things that I've read a lot about, and the Ohio Center for Autism and Low Incidence does a lot of training, and a lot of it is setting up the right scenario or setting up the right environment for these kids. And sometimes our environments, especially in the elementary, are way overstimulating for them. So we have a team, Doug and I have worked together, and we put together a team of teachers, and they are going to go through training here at school on the 23rd and 24th. They'll be kind of our professional team, our go-to people, to disperse training to the other teachers. If teachers need help, we'll be part of that as well. And you know, we'll learn as well, but it's kind of nice to make these teacher leader teams where we can have them go out and do things. And then something I'm very, very proud of, you know, we have a lot of students that I've told you before that raise money for the veterans and do things. Well, this year in Mrs. Mercer's class, she has a teacher friend that is in Sierra Leone, and they communicate back and forth via telecommunications, of course. And the kids have learned that water is in short supply over there. And so they want to start and make a goal for themselves to start doing some little fundraisers. They've got some big ideas and get sponsors and things, and they want to start raising money to give toward Project Water to help build a well in Sierra Leone. These are 5th graders.
Wow.
And so they've said, we've talked about it, and they said by the time they go to high school, they hope that that can be done. So they're looking at some things, and I'm so proud of that, because I think that, the standards change and everything changes, and when we do these projects, they're young people, and they're doing them, and we teach them, I don't tell them to do these things. I guide them with questions, but, what do you think we need to do first? Kind of where can we go? And even with the money part of it, like, how much do we have to make, and how do you think, what's realistic? And it's just teaching them so many good life lessons, not for me, but for the teachers. Everybody around here does it, but our kids they're just community activists, and I'm so proud of that. So it's kind of our thing. That's what's been going on here. And then in April, as they say, let the tests begin. That's happening. April's testing month. So we keep things a little bit quiet there and just try to keep things peaceful. There's a lot going on. We test on computers. We test all over the place. So that'll be going on in April. And then May, we have some pretty nice events, but I'll tell you about those later. Other than that, one other thing. We have, through our title money, we are able to get, one of the pieces we're missing to our reading program in the elementary is a leveled literacy intervention. We just have not had the money to buy it, and we now are able to do that. So the teachers are going to go through training. It actually comes with that. It's through the Fontes and Pinnell program. So we are going to be doing that, and the teachers, 2 of the teachers and I are working on some grants to do parent programs like we did before, and be able to do some that we're planning for next year, monthly parent programs, math and English together, and really just some things that will support parents. So anyway, that's us.
That's it.
That's all.
It's all been a busy month in March so far. Our 6th graders went to the Weather Vane Theater at the beginning of the month. We had a little bus mishap, which we had a little breakdown, but we all got back in a timely order. I think the buses from here left about 5 minutes later than they normally left. But the kids had a great time at the theater and lunch. We also last night had our winter sports banquet for our junior high kids. Very well attended by parents and kids. We had about 2 kids who didn't show, which is really good when you count the 4 teams and the cheerleaders. We got pizza and cookies and lemonade and water, and had the coaches all speak about each of the kids. It went really nice. Again, Debbie mentioned the PTO auction. I don't have to mention that. That's tomorrow evening. Sunday is our winter sports banquet for our high school athletics. That'll be 5 o'clock at a la carte. That's for the boys and girls basketball teams. And again, the cheerleaders will be doing that. Debbie mentioned COSI, but this year we're including the 6th graders in COSI. So they will also be doing that on the 24th. You missed something. You usually don't miss anything. But that'll be on the 24th as well, and we're adding the 6th graders to that. I mentioned before, David Cahoot is coming in next week. Fortunately, we're able to utilize that Ron Gerberry donation to help pay for him. And it's nice to have that money to bring in speakers for the kids. He will meet with the high school, middle school staff at 7:15 in the morning. He'll do a half hour with them. He will then do the elementary staff for a half hour, just about letting them know that these are the ways you need to approach kids and treat kids and act. And it's good professional development for the staff, because it's not coming from us, it's coming from someone else from that standpoint. But he talks a lot about character and about the pressure that's on educators today as far as what you're expected to do and what your role is. And then 8:20 he'll do the high school 7-12, high school, middle school. And at 9:30 he'll do 4th through 6th grade. So we're getting most of the kids. He wasn't sure the program was good for K-3, so we're leaving those kids out. But that'll be on the 16th next week. This Saturday, Bob Batcha and the concert band will be in competition. It's the actual concert competition sponsored by the Ohio Music Educators Association. They're graded on everything from how they walk in, how they sit with their instruments. They can't talk. It's a very strict type of grading, and it's a lot of it is how you as an instructor have your kids functioning when they come into a symphonic or concert type situation. And that'll be all day Saturday. They'll be doing that. And as he's told me, it's pretty strenuous for him and the kids because they're used to coming into the band room, getting their stuff, tapping each other once in a while, grabbing their horn. This is walk in, sit down, quiet. It's a little different for them. On the 18th, next Friday, they'll be going to a very similar competition with all the bands that are in this group, but it'll be a competition amongst the bands of music and how, not so much how your band presents itself, but how it actually is playing. And they've been training for that, and he's pretty excited about that. That one's a little more relaxed because the same evaluators are not there. It's more of the band instructors picking who the best bands are in the group. So that'll be next Friday for them for that. And then we are working, Tom Reardon from TI did get back to me, talked about that. We are looking at the training for the T-Inspire for our science and math people in June. Not sure yet, it's probably going to be more than a one-day training. It'll be on how to utilize the T-Inspire in the classroom. It has all the lessons that goes with it, and we will get them LPDC hours for that so that they can get some credit time for it. He also is going to be able to get us a break on classroom sets of the T-Inspire. Tom was a teacher of mine who retired probably 7 years ago. He's been working for TI probably at least 15 years, but 7 full-time. And he'll be able to get us a break on the T-Inspire as well as the 8th grade calculators so that if we purchase them, we have them in the class, the parents aren't going to have to go out necessarily and buy those for those grades. And then any other grades we look at, he'll be able to get us a big discount. That way we can have all the kids. We can. Right now, I think parents are paying. You probably bought one this year. How much was it? 120.
Actually, I got a pretty good deal. It was like 98 or something.
98. Probably.
Yeah, about 120.
He thinks he could probably. And normally they're about 100.
They are normal.
They're
Yeah.
normally $120, $150 for the calculator. He thinks he'll be able to get us at least half off of that. So for the parents, that's a good deal. It's a great deal for them. But if we can provide more in the classroom, that's a better route of technology for them. And that'll be in June. We have to sit down and get the dates with Debbie and the math and science teachers to figure out how it works. We're thinking right after school lets out. That way, when you're done, you go and break, you go. From that standpoint. Also, on Monday, our seniors will be going to Brilex to hear Governor John Casey. Thanks to Mr. Benio's invite.
Cool.
We're able to put that together. Kids are, it's what they're talking about right now in class. They've just done their whole interest survey of candidates, and it's strange to see who they match up with. It's really strange
doors
who
are
they
open,
match up with. They don't match up necessarily with the people you think they would. There are a lot of Trump. Kids match up with Trump. Kids match up with Bernie Sanders. What they do is they look at all the political stuff and you check and see, what's your whole idea of politics and running for office. And so this fits right into their lessons. They'll be able to actually see it, see what goes on, see what happens ahead of it, and it's a little different. I don't know if the security is checking them all. We'll find that out. It'll be a good experience.
I don't know.
Yeah. Be a great experience for
Yeah.
our Secret Service.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get them the whole experience.
They're staunch Democratic supporters who don't want to
Oh, right.
feel that we're making them go.
Right.
They have the option.
It's just interesting
They're
where the
Trump
kids are at this stage, and a lot of them are 18-year-olds, and they can vote. So it's great to get them out and see this stuff. On the 23rd, then, our juniors are going to be going to Boardman High School. We're one of few schools that chose to do this. It's a meeting with Supreme Court Justice Judith French the Ohio Supreme Court. You'll be able to spend an hour with her. They have all the questions that they need to ask her. Everything's set up for them. There, I think 2 or 3 schools were the only ones that actually wanted to bring a group. But again, they're talking about all this stuff with what's going on with politics and government, and why not go look at it and see it? And it's a good idea for them to do that. So they'll be doing a lot of that. So it's the rest of the month, and then of course Easter break will be on us before long.
Okay. Tyler.
Okay, we started talking about negotiations, you know, what's going to happen, or what things that we're talking about, you know, our desires and that kind of thing. And you know, those talks are going pretty well. Our testing that Debbie spoke of, you know, of course that's coming up, and I like the idea of the standard testing. I don't like the idea of when they happen. I wish they would push it back about a month, because now, you know, in order to for sure make sure that we are covering the material that's going to for sure be on the test, we kind of start to rush things a little bit, and I don't like that. I'd rather get more in-depth preparation for that. But it is what it is, you know, so we're dealing with that. I've told the kids, unlike last year, I told the kids this year, this definitely is on us, but it's on you as well. Last year, I think at the last board meeting, I may have said, I kind of felt like I was actually part to blame for some of the abnormally lower scores, and that was because I told kids, don't worry about it, it's not supposed to count, go in there, relax, and that kind of thing. And some of them really took that to heart and kind of took a laid-back approach to taking the test, which is not good. And some of the higher scores that are normally higher scores were lower scores. So this time I've talked to my kids and said, this is on you, the pressure's on. So there's that. Pretty much most of the things are pretty normal at this time. Everybody's trying to wrap up, you know, the last 9 weeks. I guess just to make a note, we go to the bridge building competition every year. Last year we won it. This year we placed 5th and 15th, both of our bridges. It's amazing because whether you're in sports or you're in just any kind of competition, it always seems like you learn more from failure than you do from winning. And the thing is I think what kids learned in my class that did the bridge building this year is that they didn't prepare well enough. I taught them the same lessons. I taught them all the engineering knowledge that I had about you know, the structures and that. And basically they built bridges, but they didn't build them at the same rate as they did last year and break them. I think over a 3 or 4 week period last year we built and broke about 12 bridges. This year we did 3. And so I think they felt that, hey, we're going to go with the same design. We'll just build the same design and we'll win it. Well, it takes more than that. It takes more preparation. I kept telling them, we've got to build more, learn from that. And it didn't quite happen. The teams didn't gel together as much. I mean, there was no fighting or anything, but it didn't quite happen like I had hoped. And the interesting thing was, though, is that we hadn't seen a design like that prior to last year. This year we go in there and there were about 8 or 9 bridges that were pretty close to the same design as what we won with last year. So it was kind of a compliment, I think, to, you know, we were copied, you know, but the bridge that won, no one, well, it was just a completely different design, and even though it copied our bridge last year in looks, it wasn't built as well, and they didn't even come close. So was what it was. It's a good thing, so that's all I have.
Thank you, Sean. Let's see, we have anybody from OPSI or PTO?
Nobody else is here.
So nothing else we're missing on the agenda?
Forgot about him.
Yeah, superintendent.
Oopsie.
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 We've got, we're going to do a couple different things here, and I've got a bunch of stuff to give you, but ever since the test results came out, what, December, probably, Debbie?
Yeah,
You
around
looked at them?
December, yeah.
Yours pretty like this.
Debbie and Doug and I looked at
Yours
the
pretty
test
like this?
results from 14-15 and started to put some things together. And if you take out, if you take out the biggest clipped package, it's toward the bottom, and we'll go through that first. And I thought what I'd do is kind of those test results that we put together. So if you look at that first sheet, now these are the tests from 14-15 school year, but that's what the report card is based on. And what I did was when the scores came out, I took a look at the Tri-County, Mahoning, Columbiana, and Trumbull counties, and kind of did a summary of where our scores were. And if you see the first one, the English language arts, just a few things to point out to you. Of the 6th grade levels that were tested in English language arts, 5 of our 6, we were in the top 25% in the Tri-County area by our score. Ranging from 83% to 89% of the students being at or above the proficient level. We also looked at low scores. Our low score in English language arts that year was grade 7 with 71%. The state average for grade 7 was 69%. So anytime we get close to state average, that's a red flag. We're concerned because we expect to be well above that. So that's one target that we started back in December looking at. What do we need to do? What do we need to look at that? I also listed some of the top performing schools in the Tri-County area. Now this is schools of all size, not necessarily just some like ours, but Boardman, Canfield, Poland, South Range, Springfield, Lordstown, and Maplewood were all very high scores. You'll notice several of those keep popping up, so and that's part of the plan as we go on. With the math, we had 3 of the 7 that were in the top 10% in the Tri-County area. Grades 3, 5, and 8, from an 88% to a 95%, scoring proficient or above, very, very good scores. And again, our grade 6 math was 75.4%, close to the state average. Our Algebra 1, Sean had mentioned, is 66%. The state average is actually 67%. So, looking at all causes of what could be an explanation for that. Again, top performing schools in the Tri-County area, Canfield, Lordstown, and Maplewood. Lordstown and Maplewood again. So, comparative schools to ours, something we're looking at as far as, talking to them, see what they're doing, see what type of resources they have. And then the scores, I should have mentioned this with the language arts part, but I basically showed where we were ranked in the Tri-County area as far as compared to the 45 schools in the Tri-County area, what the state average was, and then what our scores have been for the last 3 years. And then kind of picking some things, and one thing that we've all agreed we need to start to look at is the trend used to be get everybody at proficient. Your goal was to see how many were proficient. Well, now there's advanced and there's accelerated, and actually on your report card, and we'll get to that in a little bit, on your report card, the more kids you have that are advanced or accelerated, you get a little bit more points. So the push is now is not just to settle for proficient. So in some cases, you'll see where we've targeted and said, okay, for example, back up to the language arts, our grade 5 language arts, we had a decent score, but we had 0% kids that scored at advanced. So, okay, let's look at that. What do we need to do? So that's kind of how we just broke this down. I know it's a lot of information, but you're going to get a lot more tonight before you leave, but some things to just kind of look at, and that's what we've been doing. On the back side, I tried to do as many two-sided copies as I could for you. The social studies, much the same way, 3 of the 4 levels, top 25%, 2 of those being the top 10% in the Tri-County area. American government was a 91.5%, second in the Tri-County area among the highest scores. And then grade 6 social studies, 65%, state average of 58. Again, targeting some areas. certainly being thrilled with the ones we're doing well in, but focusing on some of those we need to look to improve. And then the science, same thing, 2 of 3 levels, top 25%. Again, the same type of trend, I think. We're up there, pretty well compared to all schools in the Tri-County area. And we've got some other things that we are going to share with you as far as comparative schools to us. And that's probably a good time for Debbie. You want to go over your spreadsheet that you have now?
What you have, the very colorful one, those are comparative schools. Those are schools that are similar to us. And what you see that's circled, those are the areas that we were below what similar schools were. C was pretty much the lowest. And so what I did is I came up with, on the very bottom, the areas value added in the elementary, and we look at like value added, where are we, what do we do? Part of some of the elementary is the kids are at those higher levels, so to get them to move up, you kind of ceiling out a little bit. But it's a mind shift. For so long the teachers have heard, get them to proficient, get them to proficient. Now we're saying we have to get past proficient. That's value added. We have to go from proficient. We have to have them grow a year. So if it's proficient, you want to move them to advanced to accelerated, basic and limited. You really like to get them to proficient. So that means closing the gaps. What happens if you don't close the gaps young? The gaps stay like this, and they just go. And then once you get content rich in the middle school in 5th grade and up, your gaps go like this. They get bigger because they don't have the basic skills and they don't have the content. And so you have to close gaps. That's what we're doing right now, is we're really working hard to close gaps. Your lowest 20%, that's the lowest 20% of your performing students. That's something we have to work on. We have to work on our lowest 20% and our students with disabilities. What do we do with our kids who learn differently? We learn from research, brain-based research, that kids with a learning disability learn differently, but they have an average IQ. They can learn, they just learn differently. So that's why the T-Inspire, that's why some of these, you'll see a lot more project-based learning. A lot of the teachers that were in our top, when you go into their classroom, you see a lot of discussions, a lot of project-based learning, a lot of things that you would see in the workplace, teamwork, presentations, and it's not just a presentation, just a book report. It's a presentation. It's you're taking attitudes, ideas, research in 4th grade. You go into Stephanie Sosnowski's class on any given day, and there are some kids working on laptops, there are kids working on presentations, there's kids working together, there's kids working by themselves. There's so much going on in that room, but what culminates is this fantastic project that these kids, you go and ask them anything about it. When you walk in the classroom, I talk to them, and you feel like you're talking to somebody that's becoming an expert in that area. Pretty cool. So that's it. One of the things, when I say close gaps, that's probably one of our big things, is how do we close these gaps? And I've told you before, I tell the teachers in the elementary school, by 5th grade, those gaps have to be closed. We don't have time in middle school and high school to close those gaps anymore. We're done. We have to close them, and we're doing a lot of very different things. I got a phone call from a parent from Canfield the other day, and she said, "What kind of math do you teach?" And I said, "Well, I'm not going to tell you what kind. I'm going to tell you what kind, but we kind of made up a name for it. We call it eclectic math, because it's the same thing as eclectic language arts. One of the biggest criticisms in education is we jump on bandwagons. We either do whole language or we do phonics. We either do constructivist math or we do guided math. We do all these different things. Well, we have to do what's right for the kids. So some kids learn better with constructivist. Some kids learn better with guided. Some kids learn better with kind of a mishmash of all of it. So we do what's right for kids, and that's kind of what we're doing. And you see growth in that. So I think we'll see those. I think we're seeing those gaps closed. We have a 5th grader this year. I'm going to say out of our special ed, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, 50% will test out of special ed this year. That doesn't mean that they don't have a learning disability. That means they've learned how to accommodate for it. That's kind of the highest level of learning you can get when you have a learning disability. Some of the programs, you have a paper that looks like this. Some of the programs some of the things that we're doing, not programs, just some of the things that we're doing to close gaps and extend learning. That's one of the big things that we've really started working on. How do we extend that learning? We've worked so hard on those low kids. What do we do for those upper level kids? How do we push them? So these are some of the things that we're doing. we've got the preschool in. The preschool is now partnering with the kindergarten. We're getting those kids ready to come in. They know what the school's all about. You don't have that first day jitters, all that first week of just getting to know the school. They know it. They go to the same bathrooms. They know where the cafeteria is. They come. In kindergarten, we have Jump Start and Success by 6. So our teachers really get to know these children before they even step foot on the first day of kindergarten. We already know who needs targeted assistance in writing, reading, kind of where they are, who can sit in a circle, who can't, who can stand in a line, who can't. And then kindergarten through 5th grade, you can read these. We put computer literacy in this year. One of the big things, and Mr. Zatchak gave them to us, is a man from Akron did a test. He did, not a test, but he collected data on the passage rate of kids who took the computer-based test last year and the paper and pencil-based test last year, because we have choices until next year, then we all learn computers. And if I remember right, the computer-based, a lot less passed that computer. They performed more poorly on the computer-based test. And we said that when we finally got all the information last January about what computer-based tools and things were going to be used, we weren't ready. Our kids were not ready. We didn't know. We didn't know what it was going to be. It was also very tricky. So I proctored one of the tests because I wanted to see what it looked like, kind of what our kids were going to have to deal with. And so there might be 4 parts to a question, but you have to go back and click here, and then you have to drop down, and then if you don't finish and you don't save on the save button, and you go back, it erases everything. Some of our top performing kids did not finish the test because of things like that. And they work hard, they take them very seriously. So computer literacy, our Title I teachers, after they finish their Title I, they're going every day of the week, 1 grade level will have computer literacy. It's built into the classroom too, but these are actual literacy skills, like how do you make a document? How do you edit a document? Those kind of things. As early as kindergarten, we're doing that. The K-2 plan, we have common planning time as much as we can, where the teachers can talk about kids. They can brainstorm, children. We look at our state diagnostic tests. We're required to give those. We benchmark children 4 times a year. We look at the benchmarking. We talk about them. We have child study and IAT. Child study is where we have a student in kindergarten through early 2nd grade, and we say, you know what, we just want to watch them. So we come together as a group and we brainstorm what are some ideas we can do. And then when we go to the next level, it's kind of our RTI here. The next level is intervention assistance team. So we actually put some specific interventions in. Sometimes if we've met twice and we see they're really still not there, we'll put them with a special ed teacher, with an intervention specialist. Is that working? If that's working, maybe we do need to move to testing. So we work, and it's not myself, the guidance counselor, it's teachers. We have a team of teachers that sit around and just kind of look at these kids. We observe them, that kind of thing. Our differentiation, we're using an eclectic approach, a lot of performance-based. And then 3rd through 5th grade, to add on to it, on top of it, the science and math are inquiry-based. So the teachers give background knowledge, and today I was in Jen Moss' room and they were doing a water flow table, and they had to figure out what could they do to make the water go in a certain direction where it wouldn't erode land, because that's a problem we have in many parts of our country. And they had to not only did they, on their team, they designed it and they tested it, but then they got input from their classmates on what worked, what didn't work, and then they had to go back and figure out why it didn't work and redesign it. That's real science. Social studies, they're analyzing and comparing documents, they're researching, they're taking a stand on issues and supporting it with evidence, and that's the whole way up through 12th grade. They're doing that. And then you can chime in at any time with the 7th through 12th grade.
You're tough to chime in.
Chime!
A lot of the stuff we're doing with the 7th through 12th is we're trying to get some small group instruction with kids, so that we're not necessarily pulling them out, but we're pulling small groups and then rotating groups, so that they're getting the instruction in the classroom, and then they're coming to a smaller group and getting the reinforcement, and we're getting the assessment and then feedback quicker that way with them. So we're doing a lot of that. more so in the middle school because those kids need more of that pull-out. We do have Carla Duda and Cindy work, as well as Amy Fontana Rosa at the high school, who do the tutoring and pull-out. Carla and Cindy do more pull-out, where Amy does a lot more tutoring and instruction on homework and how to do stuff when kids come in and out. And I think so far she's seen about 40 to 50 kids a day just who have questions on homework and how to do things. And it's a good situation from that standpoint. We're also looking at the state assessments and looking at the data. You know, the one thing that Debbie talked about, closing the gaps, if you go back to that chart at the high school and middle school was a B, high school was an A, and elementary was an A. We are closing the gaps from where we were the year before.
Right.
We are making advancement on that. And our students with disabilities went up a full letter grade from last year. We were
Yeah.
BD, now we're CC. So we're seeing that upward trend of the kids and the data, and we're figuring out where you need to go. With the state testing, I went with the sixth graders and did social studies with Chris Yeager. Oh my God. I don't know. As Debbie said, here's two maps. Map of India, population-wise, map of India, rainfall amounts. And you have to look at that and be able to note, look at the map, study the map, then go down, drop down box. They ask a couple questions. They don't tell you how you decide where the population and how you can mix the two maps together. So you have to figure out where are we going, and you have to go down to the next box, and it explains it. So now you have 4 questions here that you're supposed to take on this, and if the kids don't know to drop down to the next page to get the actual instructions on how do you make the arrows work, how do you do this, how do you do that, they would be totally confused. And it's a situation, and this is the air practice that we're doing. It's difficult. And what we found with 6th and 7th grade science is the terms are just terms that kids, they haven't used them. You know, they don't know what arable means and where does that fit in the country, and it's really the vocabulary. And if you go into Steve Miller's class and Chris's class with the science, they're putting those things on the word wall. So you see them, here's the word, we're going to go over it, we're going to try and define it. And hope the kids, work with the kids daily on that. Then you take them to that test and the kids are like, their eyes are spinning like a slot machine. Because where do we go? And when you have to skip a page to find out the directions to go back up, it's tough. It is hard with that. And if you take a special ed student, as Debbie said, they think differently with a lot of things. They're looking for structure. And when they're going down, and I saw one of them, here's his 4 questions. He marked them. They were all wrong.
What about kids that have test anxiety to begin
Yeah.
with? You know,
I mean,
what do you
Everybody's
do?
so stressed out. I mean,
It made sense what he was marking, but when you go back and look at it, they were all wrong because he didn't follow the next set of directions, which went back to the map form. And yeah, kids who have test anxiety, and Jeff has a paper, I don't know if you have it yet, of the impact of computer-based and paper-based. And it's amazing the difference. And when kids can see it right here, what's wrong with paper pencil? When they can see it right here,
I mean, I know we're a technological society.
the rate of success statewide was unbelievable versus the computer.
like a 40% difference between the kids success of the students who took the state test and computer-based. It was night and day difference. I think, one thing is, a lot of the schools, we are closing the gaps, and we have, if you look at the paper, we have moved up. When we looked at this, we didn't know what we were going to see. So when I started putting this data together, and I put Western Reserve at the top, I thought, you know what? We look pretty good overall. There's a couple of things we've talked about. Some of our special ed teachers, the schools that are being very successful with special ed kids, why don't we send some of our teachers over and let's see what they're doing? Maybe we can learn from them and do some things like that, some partnering with it.
And one of the things we did to help, so much of that, your district grade on the performance index is how you scored on that. If you look at that sheet, advanced 5 points, accelerated 4, proficient 3, 2, and 1. That's multiplied by number of students times another factor to build your performance index, which is how you're actually really ranked, is based on your performance index. We took our 13 lowest kids and had them retake the science and the algebra tests. We gave them intervention. They're 2 days a week, they're in intervention. Almost every kid but one moved up at least 1 or 2 groups. And that's important for their points. And the points were at the top of that paper. You have to have 18 points to graduate now, plus the credits and everything else. And that's kind of a little bit of explanation on that, and I can go into a little bit more at a later date if you want. But a student who ends up with their 18 points by the time they're going to that junior year, and they say, oh, my kid doesn't have to take the test anymore. Yeah, they still do. Because if they don't take the test, we get a 0, which means that's a non-test, that's an opt-out. So even though you hit the points, and some of our kids right now had advanced in the English and advanced in the math last year. They got 10 points already. They're well on their way, and they got advanced in physical science. Some of them already could have the amount of points that they need before they're a junior without a problem. And some won't. But that's why we made those kids retake it, to give them another chance to up their point totals. That way they're not looking at that senior year and thinking, oh my God, I need 10 points and I can't get it. So again, that's part of the thing of closing the gaps and doing things. We are doing a lot of project-based learning at all levels. We're looking at the increased number of electives. We're increasing, as Sean knows, the physics lab to a full year, so he can get into Jay's lab, practice that bridge building, do all that stuff throughout the year, instead of making it a semester course where it's the second half of the year and he's trying to scramble to get things done. This way, he'll be able to do that, as well as incorporate some of the things that Jay has available to him into the physics. And eventually we're going to look at an engineering program Sean and I have been talking about down the road.
Right now, I kind of jumped the gun actually on the whole project, starting projects. Right now, about a week ago, we started talking about something I've wanted to do for quite a while, because I find it fascinating anyways, and that is to build a hovercraft. And it's a full-size hovercraft. And we started writing the specifications yesterday in class, and I took anybody who wanted to participate. Now, if they didn't want to participate, then I gave them other separate challenges, like, there were different things that we did at the Physics Olympics, and they were to try to beat whatever won that particular competition, okay, which is separate from the bridge building. But getting back to the hovercraft project, I have about 5 or 6 kids in there that want to go on to engineering. So I started them in on, I said, first off, when you get a project in engineering, you have a company that brings in their specs for the machine or whatever it is that they want you to build. And they bring you that, and then you have to read through this, and then you have to design that machine or device, whatever it is, to those specs. I said, we are going to jump ahead of that and act like we are our own company that wants something, and then we're going to turn into the company that delivers that design, and then hopefully we build it. And the thing is we're writing our own specs right now for that project. And it's going to be right down to the grade of bolts that we use and all that stuff. And I'm going to try to give them that real world feel for a project. The problem with all these state tests, and I know it sounds like, to me, it always sounds like, oh, teachers are complaining, educators are complaining about the testing. But I assure you that none of you in any of your employment anywhere have seen problems like these that are on these tests. It's terrible. I've seen some of this stuff, just walking by, looking at the computers, seeing what they've been doing. I'm telling you, the intuition, it doesn't flow.
You just wonder what we're doing to them morally. Like we're just we're ruining
Well,
their
it's like the
self-esteem.
whole Common Core thing. I mean, I don't know whether it's okay to talk about that or not, but it's a bunch of baloney, okay?
They all think that
And
they're
I'm
not,
just telling you, from my engineering perspective, it's ridiculous. But we are doing everything that we can here to make sure that we're doing what the state wants us to do. But by incorporating like these project-based projects, that's the best way to educate these kids, because you involve them and you teach them, you know, the ideals and the fundamentals and all that stuff, and then they try to run with it, and then we can just guide them. To me, that's the best way to educate. But we unfortunately have to do this this whole other thing, and we'll do it. But
Sean, how do you feel about it?
Couple more things.
yeah, would you like me to?
Couple more things on these tests. I didn't make copies for you because we've got a ton of stuff, and you know, it's all good stuff. But this was 428 school districts. This guy from Amherst did this study. It just said, basically reply to an email and tell me, did your school do all online tests, all paper and pencil, or a combination? You can see the difference between these two. This top one are the value-added scores for those schools that did paper only. This is schools that did online only.
Wow.
So you can just see the extreme, and this was those that did combinations. So the point being is you know, you've got some schools that were taking 5th grade math online. You have some schools that were taking 5th grade math on paper. And
Do we know within this report card, do we know? You haven't contacted the schools to find out?
No.
Can we
We
do
can't
that
do it paper
for the next
first.
meeting?
And math on computer is hard. I mean,
Probably specifically to try to find out,
Hard copy.
but yeah.
Take notes.
The other thing I wanted to do is just take, I've given you copies of, this is our district report card.
Oh, crap.
So we're all used to seeing a report card. It's like a one-page thing
Yeah.
with some grades on it. I don't want to go through every single part of it. There is also a section, a black and white section, it's like the second piece, that kind of tells what each of those things mean. Now, when you look at that spreadsheet that Debbie gave you, and you see some of the C's that we've got, in the case of value added, now remember, value added wants every kid to grow 1 year. A C means that for the most part that group grew 1 year. So in the case of value added, C's aren't necessarily bad.
Okay.
Because basically what you're saying is a kid in 4th grade last year moves up to 5th grade this year, they've got 1 year's of growth.
Well, that's what's expected.
That would be a C.
That's what you expect.
Oh, really?
That's a flat line. You want a flat line.
Right.
Yeah.
So really a C isn't like we're not doing good, we're just doing what we should be doing.
So it means
Now,
it's
A's and
not-
B's means you're going beyond that. Okay, so, you know, I joked when they first came out with these report cards and said, well, you know, A's, B's, and C's, someone will be thrilled to see that.
Right.
We're not happy about the C's or the B's, but, you know, when you start to look at how they configure those, this sheet that I gave you, what does it all mean, kind of explains some of that as you're looking through the report card. But I wanted to point a few things out. I've given you a copy of the district report card, the elementary, middle school, and high school report card individually. But I want to just talk about the district, and that's the one that has, if you'll see some handwriting of some A equal a certain number and B equal a certain number. From the total state results, for example, for underachievement, our performance index at 82%, you can see we got a B. Only 6 school districts in the state got A's. So when you look at out of 600 districts, you know, we're in that group with 176 B's. For the most part, most of our scores on that, we were in the section that would be the top third of the state as far as where we were on that. So like I said, sometimes those figures can be a little misleading. If you look on page 2 of that, you'll see kind of in the center there where it says achievement level, you'll see the multiplier. We talked about trying to move those kids from proficient up to accelerated, up to advanced. And you can see when a kid scores in the advanced, then you multiply that times 1.2. So that's where you start to get your points accumulated. Again, I don't want to take you through every single thing. Starting on page 4 of the district report, you can see comparisons of our district score in blue, similar districts, what their score was in red, and then the state average in yellow. And again, looking at, you know, ours is the blue, for the most part, similar districts to us, size, demographics, population. You can see where we are on that, and there's several pages of that. Like I said, there's a ton of material in this, and I'm not going to try to go through and explain everything, but there were some that, and then obviously if you have any questions, feel free to give any of us a call. if you look at toward the back, and we mentioned gap closing, and and that's something we're really looking at. Graduation rate, we're pretty good on that. Attendance. The one thing I guess I wanted to show you to summarize on page, where's it at? 23? No. Page 24. Page 24 of the district report card. You'll notice classroom spending data. We're ranked 101st out of 163. We don't want to be number one there. Number one says you're spending a ton of money and your scores are very low. If you look over at the bottom right-hand corner of that page 24, you'll see that it says Western Reserve Local is among the 20% of public districts with the lowest operating expenditures per pupil. And it also says we are among the 20% of public districts with the highest performance. So we're getting high performance and spending less. The next page shows 3 plot diagrams. We're the red dot, and you want to be in the upper left-hand quadrant because that means your scores are high, you're spending less. And you can see where we are compared to similar districts statewide and as far as that goes. So I guess all in all, we've got things to work on. We know that. We've already started that. But, our report card is pretty good. Our scores are pretty solid. And we've identified some weaknesses in some areas that we want to work on. And we're hitting those as we speak. So I know, like I said, I know it's a ton of information. But we've been working on it for several months and wanted to try and get some of that to you in case people are asking you, how do we do on a report card. We'll check that with some of those schools, like Lordstown, Maplewood, some of those that are on that spreadsheet, maybe just to see, did you do paper and pencil or, combination, just to
And you'll never have, once they go to computer, you can't have that choice of going paper, pencil.
If
you find it.
Yeah.
One more year of a choice, yeah.
Well, how did,
So pretty soon
That's
nobody's
crazy.
gonna have a choice.
We don't have
anyways.
a choice. No,
How did
we don't have a choice. Next year, we won't have a choice.
Yeah,
in
next year you won't
elementary.
have a choice
I
at
just
all.
don't see
When
how
did
it's
we
feasible
be-
to do math without being able
Well,
to
you
write.
can have paper, you can write, you can use paper, but it's not a paper pencil
But
test.
that's like a hard copy.
yeah, why did we choose to do the computer test?
Well, that
We-
was the push.
Well, here's what our idea was, Brian. We actually looked at it like we didn't want to wait until we had to do the computer test. We wanted to see what it was all about. So part of our kids did the.
But there was no introductory, they didn't get any preparatory
We prepped them. We-
January.
With
on the
kids,
computer.
But not knowing what to expect them to do.
they didn't have any trial.
They had
mock
little
tests.
they
short
had a
window.
couple practice problems, but one of the things with math that was so difficult is they didn't release there were a lot of online tools, like we had the ruler, there was a ruler you used online. So one thing, and I mean this kind of blew my mind, there was a ruler and you do fractions on a ruler. So the kids had to plot fractions on the ruler. And if you didn't know how to use the online ruler or the online...
I probably couldn't have done it.
Yeah, and so those are the things...
Drag and drop.
Yeah, and so those are the things, that was released in January, and we started testing in March last year. So we did get the kids on as much as we could ahead of time. We did about 50% of our kids on the computer. We just needed to see what it was about. We needed to get them used to it. We didn't want to wait till it was mandatory.
Well, and
So-
part of the push from the state was and Park at that time was, use the computers. It's not going to count. We're not gonna
Yes,
bring
we're
it.
in
It's
Safe
not gonna be
Harbor
part of
for
the report
2
card.
years, yeah.
So thinking that eventually, we know we have to go to this.
Right.
Every
It's
school
really-
school jumped into it with the
I
idea
understand
that.
that.
Do it before we go, before it really counts.
And then
Do
they
it
said, oh,
now.
wait a minute, they're going to count. So after you're done, well,
Just like I went to
Well,
curriculum council today.
They don't count, but they count.
they count, yeah,
They
they
don't
don't count,
count.
but they still count in your community.
And
But if we hadn't switched, then in a couple years we would take a huge hit.
Because we wouldn't know what to expect.
Exactly. So whenever you switch, you're going to take a hit.
The
So
air tests are much easier.
They are much
I won't
better.
say much easier. They're easier compared to the
Pretty much
park. The
everything
park
will
was
change next
impossible.
year.
And the
Maybe.
air is just a little bit of,
Maybe.
we can work it with practice. We'll get the park done.
So with
or
all
the air
this
down,
testing,
but
do
the
they,
park
the
was
results, does it really matter with the kids in the long run? Like kids that have graduated 10 years from now, 10 years ago, how has this testing really made them advance in the job
We
market?
not gonna say
we didn't
Yeah.
do this.
Before you did the OGT all that time.
Right.
OGT, OGT.
We did Iowa tests back in my
Yeah,
day.
we did Iowa
Land.
tests back in the old days.
Yeah.
Oh, they had testing then?
They did,
Yeah,
they
but the
passed on
OGTs
papers.
are the most recent. Those kids were very well prepared. They were very well prepared. But there's a lot of money in
Spending.
Pearson,
Yeah, and maybe this
and they're the worst
guy-
company to get you to respond back, they won't.
Yeah, I think that's.
But there's a lot of money being made by people.
High value,
It would be different also if like, I'll just speak to
Yeah,
the math
well,
portion. If there was multiple choice and you were going over and just clicking on one, after figuring out on the paper. But you have to go in there and you have to say, oh, I'm going to write the equation, and you find,
So it's like they're trying to trick them.
3
Well, you have to write the
X
equation
plus
equation there.
7
Yeah.
equals, 95, whatever, and you had to actually show the work on the
On a computer.
On the computer.
That in itself
Well,
is
it's cumbersome.
nerve wracking.
It's just so sad. that
you're
we're
gonna
doing
spend hours and
Yeah.
days just teaching computer skills versus the foundational skills you're trying to.
Right.
Well, and that's the thing, there's no
Makes no sense.
number, but you gotta say, there's gotta be some number that their score reflects their computer skills and ability to use a computer,
Well,
regardless of the knowledge that they.
the data that the gentleman collected, it speaks for itself.
Then actually, he sent that to the State Board of Education, they have that, and they actually brought that up at the board.
Can I get that?
Yep.
Can I tell you another thing with that is it's great to say all that, but we don't have enough technology to make children proficient in those computer skills by using it every day. We have enough, we just have enough technology to let them all test on computers, but to make those children proficient, they have to use that every day. We don't have the technology.
Even at that though, you only get so efficient at that.
Right.
When you have to write an equation by typing it in, that is just not, it doesn't flow right.
Well, it's
It
not
doesn't.
You can only do it for so long. I mean, they're sitting there for an hour at a time. I mean,
Yeah, and you
that's
get 5
cumbersome.
problems done.
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. I mean, if it was
Ridiculous.
20 minutes, okay, but I mean, that's.
But you talk to any engineer, that's not how they solve a
And
problem.
anybody that works in the
They solve it
computer,
on
they get
paper.
up like every
Right.
half hour.
Well,
But anyway, we're going to make the
All
best
right.
of it. We're closing gaps, and we're doing the best thing we can for our kids. And my kids are still going to do community service.
And I've got
I think
more.
I got.
I'm not
You
done.
got more?
No, that's it.
Go ahead.
Okay, just an update on the Berlin property. They are still proceeding, not as fast as Ellsworth did, but they're still interested in the property as well. I included a letter in there from Sissy Stubbs. She graduated from Western Reserve. She's a senior at Fairmont State playing softball. She has the opportunity to go with a national team to South Africa and do some service learning clinics in South Africa. She had inquired about doing a fundraiser, like a skills camp using our softball facilities. She's doing it through the athletic boosters, so we really don't have to approve anything, just to kind of give her the okay to go ahead and do that. So that's in there for your information. I'll give you, tomorrow at noon, we have a meeting on the new athletic conference. Right now, we're still looking at a core of 7, Western Reserve, Mineral Ridge, Lowellville, Jackson Milton, Sebring, McDonald, and Waterloo is very interested in being. So those 7, we had talked to Matthews. They have since said no. Springfield is the next choice. So I think they might have felt that because they were second choice, they were a little bit hurt. We're not sure what they're going to do. We'll find out tomorrow. If they don't, then the possibility is that Southington may consider, but just as football only, which really is not the greatest, but at least that solidifies your 7 non-league football games. Baseball, basketball, softball, you can always schedule other schools to make that up. So that's not a worst case scenario. The other one they're talking about is Newton Falls, which is quite a bit bigger. And, so anyway, discussion tomorrow on that. We may, if Springfield says yes, I think we're going to move it. And
what about Crestfield, no?
no, they're
Oh, okay.
they're too big. And you know what? They wouldn't. Again, and football is the driving sport behind a lot of this. Both South Range and Crestview, they would have to be very careful playing a conference that's got 3 or 4 Division 7 schools, 3 or 4 Division
And if they
6,
lose.
when they're Division 5.
Yeah.
Because even winning, they're not going to get the points. They
Right.
might finish 8th and just make the playoffs. So
Gotcha.
anyway, that's the update on that. We are going to probably start negotiations with Tower sometime right after spring break, getting some information together on that. Our solar panel update, the panels are here. If anybody asks about the big storage bin that's behind the old building where the scoreboard is, they've delivered those. I've included a letter from an engineer as there was a question that came up about the load on the roof and the snow, the roof warranty. I had suggested, and we had Dave Harris take a look at some of that stuff with the snow load. The only thing that he came up with was they calculated 20 pounds per square foot maximum snow load. Dave typically does 25, but he says when you look at the certain chart that shows that, there's a line that runs right through the center of Mahoning County, right through Berlin and Ellsworth. The 25 is the snow belt. And, because you know how we get, they talk about lake effect snow, and sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. So, but he said it looked like all the things were within the guidelines. It's before the planning commission, so they look at the blueprints, they look at the plans. So that's likely to get going here very soon in the next month. Obviously, with the weather we have right now, they may get going. There are no penetrations into the roof. This is a rack system that basically mounts to the sides of the roof building, and then it just sets on blocks, and they're already well aware of putting pads under those blocks so that there's not a block that's rubbing against the roof. We're still waiting on BOK to come out and verify that that's all, and actually
Is it secured down so the wind doesn't take it away or anything?
yeah, it's all
Okay.
yeah. And actually, Valley has contacted BOK to come out and make sure that everything's good with the roof. So they should be beginning that. I included cross-country head coach evaluations in there. We didn't approve those because we didn't get that in time. We're not sure on golf yet if we're going to have enough for that numbers-wise. So that's in the works. I would like to ask you to, if I could proceed with the possibility of having inmates from Trumbull Correctional Facility come and do some painting of our chain link fence that surrounds our stadium, which is in some serious need. If we buy the paint, they would have a supervised crew that might come out and do that. I don't think we can get anybody unless some teachers want to come out and do that on the weekends. But
You said they wanted to.
it would certainly add some life to that fence, make it look good, and get some roller. We basically would have to just purchase the material. So if that sounds like something, I mean, April Davis, a 5th grade teacher here, her husband is the assistant warden up there. My only worry is that they're doing a lot of demolition of homes up in Warren this summer, then they're utilizing them, whether they're going to have time. So if it's okay, I'll get a hold of him and see if we can look to do that. I think it'd be a fairly inexpensive way to kind of spruce that up a little bit. All right, I'm still not done. I apologize for all this.
Did you say you moved the PTO shed or whatever from Ellsworth?
I keep telling them to move it.
Well, since we sold the property, I mean.
I've been telling them for a year to move it.
Okay.
So.
Because I hear about that once in a while from the PTO moms, that they bought that shed with their money, and that's where they always kept it.
They
when
keep
were in that
trying to-
building, and some of them say they're still trying to. I don't know. So I still hear like a little bit of.
They've been told multiple times.
Who, the PTO? Or
Yes, PTO.
Okay.
Okay. I'm still not done. I put together, you guys had asked about policy and some regular checking of some things. If you'll pull this out, I want to explain what I've done. It says Ohio Revised Code, dates and deadlines on the top. It should be in the front section of materials. This is from, and this is kind of a working document, but I thought, well, this is a good start, and you can look it over and we can revisit it. This is from OSBA, and it's basically starting with each new school year in July. It talks about the requirements that have to be done, whether you need to, as far as teaching contracts, if you have a tax levy you want to put on, the deadline when that should be done, and it's goes through each month. What I've done also, and you see it each month at the top of each month in bold print, I put some of those policy items and try to spread those out a little bit that we can do. For the August, I just kind of try to space some things. The August board meeting, evaluation of instructional program, kind of a report much like we gave you tonight. It might be on various things. It might be very specific. It might be testing. I thought that would be a good time, and that's something as a board that you could say, hey, we'd like to give us a report on athletics, give us a report on whatever. That would be an August board meeting activity to speak of, I guess. I put October for that Business Advisory Council. With some of the changes going on, that might be enough time to get something together. Doesn't necessarily mean they have to meet that month, but a report on where that is and where that's going. Again, November, we have in our policy that 4 times a year, some type of report from the administration on some of the goals and that type of thing. So program strengths and weaknesses. So that would be in November. January board meeting is evaluation of superintendent treasurer. And I've included with all this stuff the evaluation that we used last year, along with the new standards that this is kind of drawn up from, and for the treasurer and superintendent. Reason that's being in January is basically you have to notify by March 1st if you're going to non-renew a superintendent's contract. Certainly doesn't do any good to do an evaluation in March if you have to notify by March 1st. So trying to go through those things, and then I put March there. I figured, some years, and this can be used from year to year and it can be tweaked, but some years you're going to have a new board members. So by the March meeting, you're going to look at some of the things like the philosophy and statement of philosophy, just revisit it. Is that, where it needs to stay. April board meeting, commitment to accomplishment, evaluation of the resources, and again, that's all in place. It could be just something, do you want to look that over? Do you want to make change or not? But look through it, kind of give it, it's kind of a timeline that can be followed from year to year. Now, some of the actual dates of things that are on this whole calendar as far as the legal deadlines, those may vary. Some years that 15th might be a Sunday, it might be a Saturday, and it would go. But I think it's something that's pretty handy that can be kind of kept and revisited all along.
Good job.
So, I guess that's it.
That's good, thank you.
I guess that's not it.
We've checked in the gymnasium. We're currently working with Modern Music on the sound in the gym because it's been so poor. We've looked at the tower, and at some point, we're not sure who lowered all the amps. So the guy from Modern thinks when radio sound was been working on it, they lowered it so you didn't get a lot of feedback when the gym was more empty, and they never raised them back. So we've raised them back where we think they should be, and we're going to see Wednesday how it sounds. If not, we're also looking at new mics because our mics are low-end mics. We need to get better mics. We can get a good price on mics, around $180, $190 a mic from Modern. Those are about $300, $350 mics. What we have now are the low-end mics. And if the next step from that is we're going to look, if that doesn't solve it, then it's got to be the speakers, and we're going to look at bringing in different types of speakers up top. So by graduation, hopefully, that is all taken care of, and we should have better sound.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
anything else?
What?
Richard.
I just wanted to share with the board that I had the opportunity to go to a human trafficking program last Thursday at South Range. I thought it was fairly well attended. I figured there'd be 10 people there. There's probably 30, so that's 20 more than I figured. I've gotten the information. I just haven't been able to get up here and sit down with anybody. They've offered an in-service for the staff, and what they did at South Range was they did a robocall, and the superintendent actually introduced the program to 2 State Highway Patrol. Good videos. I mean, they just told it like it was. It was 1 hour, and I just think that that's something we ought to take a look at.
Oh, thank you.
And I think an in-service thing for the staff would be good. And then possibly have a program for the community. And they're more than willing to do it, so I just wanted to share that with you.
Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Third.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Mr. Blevins?
Yes.
Mr. Halls?
Yes.
Mrs. Potts?
Yes.
Do you want these? If you're not going to use it, yeah, we'll use it.